Now let's work on ordinary annuity exercises. So the first exercise is asking for the present value of a 4-year annuity of $100 per year that makes its first payment 1 year from today. So what that means is 1 year from today means that it's just, the first payment is being made at the end of the period. Okay, so this is an ordinary annuity example. And the discount rate is 9%. If that were the case, we would like to figure out the present value of this annuity. So before we start, whenever you start over, you will have to clear work from the earlier work, second, and clear time value of money. Number of periods was 4 years. Interest rate was 9. And then the payment would be $100 being just paid, right? So it's negative. And then this one is actually just repeatedly being paid off, right? So repeatedly occurring, and it's equal amount, which constitutes the definition of ordinary annuity, all right? So annuity, and then this will have to be the payment amount. And then with that being just all recorded, and you are trying to figure out the present value. So compute present value. And that will be equal to 323.97. So the present value of all the payments regularly being paid out for 4 years, worth $100 per year. That would be equal to 323.97 when the discount rate was 9%. The second problem. So you can afford $632 per month. Annual interest rate was 12% and the monthly compounding was for 4 years. That means annual interest rate 12%, but compounding was monthly. Then it's 1% per month for 48 months, right? If that were the case, how much can you borrow? Meaning you always borrow like today, all right? So in these cases, if the problem is asking about the loan, then it's most likely you will have to answer the present value. Okay, so the present value of this annuity system, the number of periods would be, it's not just 4 years, but 4 years times the number of months. So 48 months as your number of periods. And then interest rate, the annual rate was 12%, but monthly rate would be 12 divided by 12, which is 1 as your interest rate. And then the payment amount was 632 negative. It's being paid out, right? You should just input that as the payment. And then finally, you're ready to compute the present value, which is, the amount that you can borrow at the moment. So control present value. And that gives you 23,999, which is similar to 24,000. The third example, suppose you're depositing $50 a month into an account that has an annual rate of 9%, but it will still be compounded monthly, all right? So it's a very similar problem to the earlier one. And how much will you have in the account in 35 years? But it's asking a completely different variable. So you're gonna just deposit it for the next 35 years. Then how much will you have by the end of the 35-year term? So this is asking you about the future value. All right, so all the input variables will be very similar, except that you are solving for a different variable in the end. So number of periods would be 35 years times number of months, which is 12. So 35 times 12, which is 420. So 35 times 12, of course, will be 420. So that will be input as your number of periods. And the monthly rate will be 9% divided by 12, which is 0.75%. So you're going to input 0.75 as your interest every month. And the payment amount, the regular payment amount, will be $50 every month. And with all of these variables being just recorded, how much would be the future value? How much will you have in the end? You will get $147,089.22 after 35 years. And the final ordinary annuity question, this is more like a comprehensive exercise, so you might as well just pay attention here. So the background information here is more like your mortgage situation. So you're trying to buy a house, and right now, what you have in your pocket, in your account is $20,000. It's for down payment and closing costs, okay? You need to pay this out of your pocket. And closing costs are estimated to be about 4% of the loan value. So you don't know what the loan value is yet, but whatever that amount is, you will have to multiply that by 4% to compute the closing costs. Your annual salary is $36,000, and your bank will, so there's always this DTI rate, which is debt to income. And they will only allow you to pay mortgage payment up to 28% of your monthly income. So your DTI is about 28. And the interest rate on the loan is 6% per year with monthly compounding. What that means is every month, the interest rate being applied will be 0.5%. And as usual, this is a 30-year fixed rate loan. So this is the background information for you. First question asks, how much money will the bank loan you? So what will be your bank loan amount? So to figure that out, monthly income was $36,000 divided by 12, $3,000, right? So $3,000 was your monthly income. And then from there, you can compute, the maximum amount of mortgage payment that your bank will allow, which is $840. So you're only allowed to pay up to $840 for your mortgage payment. And with that, just being calculated, you have to figure out, so this is going to be your monthly payment amount. Okay, so you just figured out the payment amount. And with that, let's figure out the loan value that the bank will let you borrow, meaning the present value of all the payments that you will be able to pay for the next 30-year term. Okay, so you're computing the present value. Remember, when you're asked the loan value in any case, then you will have to use the present value. You're just taking the loan like right now, today. You're not getting the loan like in 30 years. Okay, you just need it right away. That's the purpose of the loan. So, number of periods will be 30 times 12, which is 360 months, okay? So for 30-year term, your number of periods most likely will be 360 because it's most likely monthly. And then the interest rate. So monthly interest rate was 0.5. And then finally, the most important information, which is the payment that we just computed, it was $840 negative every month. And then with all these variables, we would like to know the present value. So let's compute present value. And it says that so if you just paid, if you were paying $840 every month, that would be equal to $140,105 in today's value. And adding on to that question, the additional question asks how much you can offer for the house. So what will be the offer price? Okay, you are just trying to decide on your offer price. So this is the amount that the bank will lend you, right? And on top of that, there was your out-of-pocket money, and that was $20,000, right? But $20,000 cannot just be paid like direct. Not the entire amount can be paid towards your purchase price, because there is this thing called closing costs as well. And it said, according to the problem, closing cost is 4% of the bank loan value. So $140,105, right? And 4% of it will be paid towards your closing costs. So $5,604 will have to be paid for your closing costs. So you had 20,000, right? So from 20,000 of your the money that you already had, from there you'll have to pay 5,604 as your closing costs. So only 14,396 will remain as the payment towards your house purchase. So this will be used for your house purchase. And in addition to that, of course, the loan that you got from the bank, which is 140,105. So the sum of these two values will be available for you to use as your offer price. So the maximum price that you can offer for the house, or the price that the maximum amount of house, the maximum price of the house that you can afford right now would be $154,501. Now it's time to move on to the annuity due. So the annuity due, before we start, annuity due, you just have to add just like an additional tweak here on your calculator, and that will just make things simple, much simpler than computing it with a formula. So what is that little tweak? You will just have to just change the setting here. So you would see, like on top of payment, you will see BGN, which stands for beginning. So what that means is you're changing the payment frequency from end of the period, which is the default, to the beginning of the period. So how can you do that? Second payment. And you will see that END just shows up. So END stands for the end of the period, which is the default. But you would like to make changes to that. So making changes can be made by second enter, which is set. Okay, you're just changing the setting. And you will see that BGN just appeared. BGN stands for beginning. So right now, when you're doing the time value of money work on your calculator will treat the payment being processed at the beginning of every period instead of end of the period, right? So it has just been changed. So how do you know that, this change has been made? At the top of the display section, you should have BGN on the right hand side. Once this has appeared, you're ready to go. You just get out of there by just, clearing the word clear. And then let's just compute the problem. So the first exercise, what is the present value of a 4-year annuity of $100 per year that makes its first payment today? Of course, this means that this is an annuity due, and the discount rate is 9%. So everything will be just input as if it were like an ordinary annuity. But because you have this BGN just appearing at the top, everything will be processed as an annuity due. So 4 and 9 IY, negative 100 PMT. And now let's compute the present value. And then the answer should be 353.13. So this problem is actually an identical problem. It's very similar to the first exercise that we did. The only difference is the earlier one was an ordinary annuity problem, whereas this one is an annuity due. And you can see the answer here is 353.13. When the ordinary annuity question's answer was 323. So you can see there is a slight difference pertaining to the payment period, whether it was being made at the beginning or at the end of each period. Now let's continue to work on the annuity due problem. So congratulations, you just won a contest, and you'll receive $10,000 a month for 20 years starting today. All right, and your interest rates would be 12% on your investments. But this 12%, even though it doesn't say anything, default, if it doesn't say anything, then it means it's an annual rate. So annually, you're getting 12%. What are your winnings worth today? So it's asking you about the present value. $10,000 a month. So you're given the payment amount, 20 years, that would be 20 times 12. So that will be 240 months, right? That should be input as your number of periods. Interest rate will be 12, not 12%, but 12% is annual. Okay, if it's just not saying anything, then it's an annual rate. All right, so 12 divided by 12 will be 1. So 1 as your interest rate. Payment will be you're getting $10,000 per month, which should be your payment. And let's compute the present value. And it will give you $917,276. Okay, that's how much it's worth. So we've completed all the examples related to annuity due. And if you just keep it this way, so let's just get out of there. And if you just don't do anything about it, then BGN will remain at the top of your display. And everything that you process on your calculator will be based on, all the payments being made at the beginning of each period, which is not a common situation. So if you want to go back to the default setting, which is the end of the period setting, then you'll have to go back to second PMT. All right, so BGN. Here, right now it says that the setting is BGN, but you may want to convert it, just convert it back to end, right? And how can you do that? Push second, enter one more time. Then this will be gone, and you will just change the setting back to the default, which is end. All right. So you can just play around with it by just pushing this as many times as you want. It will just go back and forth between beginning and ending, but most likely you will process it with the default setting, which is end. So if you just confirm that this BGN is gone, then you can just get out of there by clearing.